Good evening, Baltimore. Welcome back to Transparent Talks with Wendell Freeman. I am your host, Wendell Freeman, and I'm thrilled to have you join me for my second episode. As we approach Independence Day, it's important to reflect on what true independence means to all of us, especially the Baltimore residents. Today, I'm honored to have a special guest with me, Tori Rose, a dedicated activist and advocate for social justice. Welcome, Tori.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it.
Tori, as we get up to celebrate Independence Day, it's crucial to consider what independence means to us in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about independence, we often envision freedom from oppression, the ability to pursue happiness, and the right to self-determination. But the reality of many of us in the city is far from this ideal. Can you share your thoughts on what true independence means in the context of Baltimore?
Absolutely. Again, thank you, Wendell, for having me. My name is Tori Rose. I go by the Connector. And as a connector, we often think about true independence going beyond like the historical context. Although we're going to come back to the historical context because I'm a teacher and I'm a history teacher of all things, previous educator. So to all my educators out there, woo-hoo. When we think about, shout out to the educators, when we think about our city, our nation, our communities, right, and how they're founded, we often think about independence equating to living without fear. We think about equality of education. We think about having access to certain economic opportunities. But for me, it is about first your mindset and then your leverage of power, right? So how do we leverage our mindset and whatever individual power, and I was just talking about this backstage, to live in a life without systems, right? So that's what I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit more about today. For many Baltimoreans, especially Blacks and Browns in the city, we see independence as a fundamental freedom that's out of reach. And I know you and I both have backgrounds in politics, and we can speak all day about that, right? It's like the dangling carrot. So that's how I look at it. I'm looking very forward to this conversation tonight. Guys, share it. Everybody who's tuning in, make sure you drop your comments because we want to hear from you as well. So independence is a mindset. It's about your relationships of power. And to me, at times, it feels just out of reach here in the city.
I totally agree with you, Tori. Thank you for that. We'll be right back after a quick break. Don't go anywhere because there's much more to discuss on the special Independence Day episode of Transparent Talks with Wendell Freeman. Stay tuned.
Yo, Baltimore. Welcome to the first edition of Transparent Talks with Wendell Freeman. I am your host, Wendell Freeman, and I'm so glad that you all were able to join me this evening. Listen, this podcast, like I said earlier, is all about three things: the real, the people, and the community. And just to let you guys know what's coming up, we're going to have some people from citizens to our squeegee workers, to politicians, to firemen, to police, to anybody you can name, to chefs, entrepreneurs, to cooks, to anybody you can name. We're going to have them on there. You want to know why? Because this podcast is for you. We need to hear how you feel about the city, how you feel about the development, and what do you want to see differently in our communities, because it's not just about one person. It takes all of us collectively to make the change that we need in the city. I'm like every parent that's in the city of Baltimore who is looking for a change in direction. And this podcast is going to be that. It's going to be the podcast for the real. It's going to be the podcast that's going to be transparency. It's going to be the podcast that's going to let you know what the people really want to hear. Not the fake media, not the people who, just want to tell you what you want to hear. No, this is the transparent talks, and we're going to have it with me, right? Bringing the real to you and bringing me to you, right? A lot of people ask me, who are you? This is who I am. Like I said, I am Wendell Freeman. I am you. I am that young boy who grew up and didn't have his mama there in his life. I'm that young boy who lost his best friend at 13, 14 years old right in front of me. I'm that same individual who ran for mayor in one of the largest cities, and I'm the youngest candidate ever to run for mayor in the history of Baltimore City. These are the facts. Again, this is just the introduction, right? This is the start. This is what Transparent Talk is all about: holding accountability and transparency. Thank you for joining in. This is an introduction of what's to come. Again, Starting June 25th, we are going to have that is our official launch, official first episode. I'm excited to talk about the city of the future of Baltimore in my eyes. I see a city where crime is low. I see a city where our kids have the best education system in America. Right? I see a city where our young people are entrepreneurs. They're business owners. They're people who are changing the culture forever. When we look at our city, look at Baltimore, all we know is for crime, drugs, prostitution, and corruption. It's time to change the narrative, and that's what we're going to do on this show. Right? Again, my name is Wendell Freeman. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. June 25th, please tune in. We are live in the action, our first official episode. We may have a guest, we may not. You guys tune in to see. Thank you very much.
Probably three cities that are like ours, right? So Baltimore, we have a city in Nevada, and there's a city in St. Louis. Independent cities, not governed by a county, okay? Someone made the decision 300 years ago, 1851, to put a charter in place that say that our city, one of the smallest cities in the country, right? So Baltimoreans have this idea that we're huge. We're not. When I was growing up in West Baltimore, we had 900,000 residents. We're at about 600,000 residents. That means we're the size of a town, okay? We're like an island. Imagine Maryland, you know what imagine, the truth is, Maryland has 23 counties, and then Baltimore that sits alone as an independent entity. Is that intentional? Of course it is. The framers of our city assumed that we were going to be able to leverage all of this power because when they created Baltimore, we had a lot of individuals coming from other countries here, right? We were talking about power behind the scenes. And I know I'm trying not to bore y'all because I'm a history teacher and I could do this all day. But to know where you are going means you study where you're coming from, right? A port city, an island, an independent entity that the framers of our city made the decision that they were going to identify where Blacks could live, where Blacks could work, what education systems Blacks could be in, way before you and I hit the city. So the reason I start with us being independent is because I'm in my 40s. I've never been to a conference with the leaders of our city and the other independent city leaders. You understand? How do you benchmark if you don't meet with the people whose dynamic is like yours? You understand? So when we're having meetings with Baltimore County and we're having meetings with Howard County and Anne Arundel County, even though we're all in Maryland, we are independently operated by our charter. Our charter is what governs how we move. So this week, maybe even this morning, Westmore, he enacted 6 Maryland state laws. If I walk outside and I ask 7 people what laws were enacted today, they won't know. Because we operate so independent that we're like a town and we're in our own bubble. CARES Act money missed us, right? We're governed by a consent decree. That money comes all past us. Why is that? It's not accidental. And so anyway, when you talk about these ideals and you talk about economic inequality, you have to get to the fiber of the city. You have to also understand that we're in a city that is right now governed by people who look like us, right? Predominantly Black city, predominantly Black leadership, powered by whites, powered by those who have the money to tell government officials what things are gonna be important and what things are on the agenda and what things get ignored in the community. Ask me if I'm lying, right? You know I'm not. I live in Hamlin. Hamlin is a historic community. In the 1700s, Gwynns Falls Parkway was one of the original places that flour mills were up and down Gwynns Falls Parkway. Flour mills were up and down Jones Falls and Expressway. How can we be historic, but a council person gets $6,000 of an endorsement from a predominantly white organization, and then within a month or two, we have a bike lane that stretches across West Baltimore, right, straight down Gwynns Falls, in the midst of a historic neighborhood? How is that possible? How, when nobody in the community said we wanted it? So instead of being proactive, now our community has to be reactive. When you drive down Gwynns Falls, you see hundreds of no bike lane signs because we were not asked before the decision was made. When we talk about inequity, that is an example of inequity. When we talk about critical issues in education, Hilton Elementary is one of the elementary schools in my neighborhood, doesn't have an elevator, right? Well, what happens when you have disabled children? What happens when you have disabled parents? These are systemic, intentional inequities that are being left to just fade away, you know, hoping that the rebel rousers, the Wayne Bakers, the Tori Roses, the Wendell Freemans shut up, forget about it, or get paid enough to be quiet.
Well, you know, they can never pay me to be quiet.
Maybe not a never.
That's why we don't transparent talk,
That's
because
right.
this is, we doing what they don't want to hear.
That's right.
But thank you for that, Tori. Now, those are significant issues, and addressing them requires a multi-phase approach, obviously. We all know that. It's about creating jobs, you know, ensuring affordable housing,
Right.
and improving our schools, and dismantling those system barriers that you just were speaking about,
Right.
that have had our community back for too long. Longer than we both been breathing in and Baltimore together, right?
That's right.
So,
Well, if I could go back to that, something you said, how do you debunk a system that makes money from keeping the system broken? And I think people will say, well, we're not giving the right resources to the community wants the resources. Even if we dropped $1 million at Penn North right now, they wouldn't know what to do with it. Most families will never have seen $1 million in their lifetime. So throwing money at an issue is not the answer. So I could give you a job, right? I work, you know, I own my own business. I also have had jobs along the way. And one of the things I talk about all the time, I teach my staff, is competency. You cannot learn what I do in a year because I've been doing it for 20 plus years. You can come in and fake what I do all day, but the core competency takes time. And so for us to break down a systematic barrier, you talked about multifaceted approaches. Multifaceted approaches are necessary because we don't have a lot of time. If we're not careful, in 5 years, it will require $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 as a median income in this city just to make it. Bare minimum. But the average income right now is like $30,000. So a multifaceted approach is important because we don't have time. People are dying, right? You drive through, we see zombies on corners. We see people who are losing their lives and their livelihoods. It doesn't matter if it's affordable housing offered to communities that can't afford to be in their own community, right? What is affordable according to the national average? If you tell me a $200,000 house is affordable in the national average, but the median income in Baltimore is $30,000, how is that affordable?
or even when you need $90,000 in the bank to even get a dollar home, that's ridiculous.
And who allowed that? Because if I had $90,000 in the bank, would I need your dollar home?
Exactly.
Of course not.
Of course not, right?
So issues will continue to arise if we allow developers to pad the pockets of politicians. Then those policies that are passed will lean in the favor of those that are paying their way through our city.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So real quick before we go. So you said something about the policy. Real quick question. The policies that have been set in Baltimore obviously are not for us.
Right.
What can we do as individuals, like you said, we regular people, what can we do?
Talk to everybody. Talk to everybody. We have to reignite hope. If you have someone who's drug addicted and they don't think that they're going to live a year, there's nothing that you can say that's going to change their actions today. They don't plan on being here tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Talk to everybody. That's where we start.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break. This conversation is getting real juicy. We ain't done yet. When we come back, we'll dive deep into the steps our community can take toward true independence. Stay with us. Thank you.
And that's where ABM Marketing was created. I've been an owner of a marketing company since I was 18 years old. I'm going to be 30, I'm telling my age, I'm about to be 30 this year, right? I've been a CEO for 11 years, right? I've hired over thousands of people in Baltimore City because I knew at the end of the day, the average job, I knew that once I learned the skill set, the opportunity, and the marketing aspect of what I need to do, I was able to train other people to do the same thing. So that's what I decided to do. I decided to take men and women from high school, grown women, adults, teach them on how to make six-figure salaries every single year. So that's where ABM Marketing Group came into play, right? But then after that, right, we go into further depth, right, into why I decided to run from there.
All right. So we pretty much just was talking about challenges and what we can do. The challenges that we just spoke about. What steps can we take as a community? You got a little bit into it, but what steps can we take as a community to move closer to true independence? How do we bridge the gap between the idea of freedom and our current reality?
That's an awesome question. So, I talked a little bit last segment about talking to everybody. Why that's important is because we see some of these tactics even in like suicide prevention. If you can keep the person talking, you can keep them engaged, they'll continue to live. When you walk through certain parts of our community, it's hopeless and it feels like it, right? It feels like people are just literally waiting to die or die off, right? There is no pride in our city anymore. I think about how years ago we were so excited. Like my grandmother was featured in Afro, the clean scoops, clean steps. It's probably before your time, but we used to have like clean blocks, and the Afro would come through and would rate your block. And the women in the community were excited about showing that their steps were clean and their flowers were potted and all of the things. We had frozen cup ladies and candy stores, and we had block parties. And now, unfortunately, you have a community party and somebody might get killed. And so we have to approach this thing in a way that is people-centric. So yes, get people talking. Yes, we want to hear from the voices of those that are most affected, but those voices need to be translated in politicians' pockets. We are in such a dire need for change that if you don't start hitting people where they're crooked and force them to be straight, nothing is ever going to change. And so, for instance, I made a comment a few months back that if I didn't get elected in this most recent election, that the shift in Baltimore City was going to be so impacted that a community person would not be able to run for at least 8 years. And let me explain why I said that. Most sitting council people are raising $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, if not more. They're making about $70,000. So can you imagine telling someone with a high school education, in order for you to become a city council person, to impact laws for the community that you've been raised in, you got to go out here and earn $80,000 first before you even get the job. You know how many people would not do that? Historically, Black people don't ask people for money. That's not what we do. Black women especially, that is not what we do. And so me being someone who said, if I can't finance it out my own pocket, that I would have a very small base of donors because I wanted to make sure I was not bought and sold, right? But the incumbent, who was getting money from every developer, right? From people who we don't even know, people who live,
even Republicans,
people who live outside of our city. What that then puts him in a position is to have to cash the checks that his butt wrote. Literally and figuratively, right? And so we understand that hearing the voices is not enough. The people have been crying out, we want jobs, we want rec centers, we want parks. The children are dying in the street, not having recreation. It's not enough. But when we start saying, listen, that council person can't come in my community. And every time he comes in my community, I'm going to City Hall and I'm a protest. Because until he does what he says he's going to do, until we pull these free reports and see who donated to him and start writing letters to these people's houses, right? Start showing up at Blue Cross Blue Shield and saying, how could you support this type of candidate who is allowing 7-year-olds to get shot in my community and being silent about it? Until we start hitting them in their pockets, processes will never change. And so somebody listening is gonna be like, girl, I'm not commando. You ain't gotta be a commando to write a letter, right? You can literally Google who is donating to these people, but you have to care. You have to envision a Baltimore where you belong. And for me and my children, my daughter deserves a community where she can feel comfortable, where she can walk out of our house, down to the park, down to the reservoir, and she can feel like she belongs. That's a bare, basic right. When we talk about independence, mindset, the mindset of my children is they belong here. Every child should feel like that. But you know why they don't? Because many of them go to sleep hungry. In the winters, they're cold. In the summers, they're hot. They listen to their parents, not get help from the city that says they're supposed to represent them. So if you at the bare core can't eat here, can't comfortably sleep here, why would you want to live here? Why would you want to add value to this place? There's no freedom in the oppression that our children are feeling. So what we have to do is get back to advocating for those things. Like every single homeowner should advocate for a community person or neighbor to have a house. There's no reason. I just bought, a brand new house in October, and I don't.
Great.
Thank you. I hate that process though. I don't care what nobody say. No matter how many homes you buy, you be like, Lord, what is happening? But that's a privilege. It's a privilege, Wendell, that I am sitting here from Highlands and Pulaski, moved from Highlands and Pulaski to Payson and Appleton. My family still some of us still, you know what I mean? And I can sit here and say, I just purchased another house. I just bought it's a privilege. So now as a homeowner, I have a responsibility to make sure I empower my neighbors because them owning their homes benefits me. And it benefits the city overall. We are becoming a haves and have-not little town. There's an emergence of elitism that's happening. So if you don't believe me, start looking at where these council people drive. And I do drive a nice car, but y'all had it before the politics. I live in the right neighborhood, right? My kid goes to the right school, my oldest. My youngest will go to the right school. That's elitism in itself. By Black people, by skin folk who don't give a damn if we make it or not. The skin folk ain't always kinfolk. So we gotta get off of the Black people, we coming together and say, where's my tribe? I wanna be around the developers. I wanna be around the creative. I wanna be around the artists, whatever your tribe is. And then you find power within your tribe. If we all move forward, eventually we'll catch up at the mark together. But right now, independence is a thing that I don't think we're ever gonna fully get in this city with Black leadership.
Say, I couldn't agree with you more. I cannot agree with you more. It's about empowerment and ensuring that every resident has the opportunity to thrive. Somebody who ran for mayor of one of the largest cities in America, I've seen firsthand the importance of leadership, and that's truly listening and response to the community needs. So thank you for that. We're going to take another short break, but when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into Independence Day. Tori's killing it. Thank you, Tori Rose, for coming on again. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Stay tuned. Tori, can you share a personal story or experience highlighting the struggle of true independence in our city?
I sure can, and I've talked about this before. Again, born and raised in West Baltimore. It's not a uncommon story, unfortunately, but I found myself homeless as a teenager. And when you are living day by day, situation by situation, you are struggling for not only safety, security, but you're also like struggling to identify who you are. And so I went to Western High School. So Western and homeless doesn't often go hand in hand. But we have in our city some of the largest numbers of homeless children enrolled in schools, right? We don't often get to talk about that because they put a little checkbox on the application now that says, are you homeless as a child? And unfortunately, you have some people who are weaponizing that, meaning they're clicking, yes, their child is homeless because it comes with the flexibility of being able to put your child in the school that they want, okay? But me, I was truly homeless. So sleeping in vacant apartments, sleeping on the back of the bus, in and out of shelters, like life was tough. And I think back to mindset. I had someone in the shelter, and shout out to my sister's place, shout out to the House of Roof and many of the women-focused shelters in our city.
Yeah, shout out to the House of Roof. I know that you said too, because they're important.
They are important, and the work that they do changes lives, right? I'm here as a living testament to what a little kindness can do, right? Everybody who falls on hard times, you need a little kindness. And so I was in one of the shelters, and this woman gave me this book. It was by Ayanna Van Zon, and it was called The Value and the Valley. And I'm, 17, trying to figure my life out, and I start reading this book, and I start understanding that I can find value in every situation. So before I became physically free, I had to become mentally independent. So I was not then a product of what was happening to me, right? Yes, I had fallen into a space in a system that did not protect me. There should never be a homeless child in the city, ever. However, strengthening my mind, my mental then allowed me to be free. So although I was living in the street, living in certain situations, I was able to manifest. And I used to pray all the time, like, God, just send me a family, send me a family, send me a family. And shout out to Linda Brown and her and Brittany and Kelly and the people who ended up taking me in 17 and 9 months. And as a result of that, I wasn't raped in the street. I wasn't sold into sex trafficking. I sit here today not looking at all like what I've been through, right? That experience, what it also taught me was we need systems in place that are easy for our young people to navigate through. And so unfortunately, what you don't realize is being homeless, you don't have an address, which means you can't apply for benefits. If you can't apply for benefits, you can't like pull yourself forward. Being a homeless child means, and an emancipated child means there's someone somewhere who is supposed to be responsible for you. And without the foregoing of that person, you don't get any aid. So without mental toughness, I would have stuck in one of those shelters. I may not have finished Western, I may have turned to any kind of nefarious lifestyle, but I was determined to find value in that. So that ties back to what I was talking about. Like, people are so hopeless that they don't have value in just being here tomorrow. What you hear people say, and I'm sure you've heard this, man, I can't wait to make it so I can get out the city. I can't wait to so I can dip. Where you going?
Right.
We need you here.
Right.
Because let me tell you who is coming here. No offense to any of my friends from New York and Philly and Jersey, but the other people are coming from other states, California, Tennessee, maximizing. You start talking to some of these promoters, they're not from Baltimore. You start talking to some of these advocates, they're not from Baltimore. Nonprofit owners, they're not from Baltimore. So those people who are from the fibers of the city, you have to work on your mind. You work on your mind and your heart will follow. And so that is my personal story that, I struggled to fight for, and I'm still fighting for that. You know why? Because I sit in meetings with people who don't believe. And these people are in positions of power. You sit as a gatekeeper over $4, $5, $6 million that could be coming into our community, but you don't believe. So because they don't believe, people say you don't pay like you weigh. They don't pay like they weigh. they'll hold the money because they don't believe that Baltimore has a bright tomorrow until they see the mayor hugging the governor because a bridge has fallen, right? They don't believe that the next cure to cancer is coming out of St. Town, Winchester. They don't believe that Hoppin has a student right now from Baker Street who's going to be one of the most influential teachers in our country. They don't believe that. So the mindset is broken. And again, if we don't fix our minds, we'll never fix our communities.
Absolutely. That's a powerful story, Tori. It underscores the need for systematic change and community support. To our listeners, if you have stories or experiences you'd like to share, please reach out to us. Your voice is important in this conversation. We're almost done for the day. This conversation has been fire. A quick message from our sponsors. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more Transparent Talks with Wendell Freeman.
And that's where ABM Marketing Group was created. I've been an owner of a marketing company since I was 18 years old. I'm 30, I'm telling my age now, but I'll be 30 this year, right? I've been the CEO for 11 years, right? I've hired over thousands of people in Baltimore City because I knew at the end of the day, the average job I knew that once I learned the skill set, the opportunity, and the marketing aspect of what I need to do, I was able to train other people to do the same thing. So that's what I decided to do. I decided to take men and women from high school, grown women, adults, teach them how to make six-figure salaries every single year. So that's where ABM Marketing Group came into play, right? But then after that, right, we go into further depth, right, into why I decided to run from there.
Let's switch things up a bit and play a game called Baltimore Hot Seat. Controversial opinions. We'll take turns answering questions related to Baltimore's hot button issues and share our honest opinion, okay? You ready to go?
I'm ready.
Cool. Question 1. Should Baltimore implement a universal basic income to address poverty?
No. And you want me to elaborate?
Sure.
Okay. No, because universal basic income would create a marginalized deficiency in our economic status. And so because Baltimore has become such a big business when it comes down to pushing money into certain groups, what we would see is the flight of those groups, right? So we're already in population decline. Any more people leave, we're going to implode. And so what we should do, however, is pay those people who are making significantly less than the average what they deserve, right? So bring those people up and shift all of us towards a national GDP.
Yeah, I agree with what you said.
What she said.
Right. Question number 2. Is gentrification beneficial or harmful to Baltimore's neighborhoods?
Gentrification is harmful to every city. And let me just say this, if you look at certain communities, gentrification does not always mean income Black people. Gentrification can also be a mindset. And so there are certain Black communities where Black people from other states are moving in, shifting the market value of the homes, buying specific properties, shifting the policies. So gentrification is harmful to all neighborhoods and communities when the original people are not preserved in it.
No, I agree 100%. And actually, just a quick story, when I was running for mayor and I was talking to residents, and that's one of the biggest questions they were asking me about my opinion on it. Did you ever have to do my research? Because I wasn't too familiar with it, and I have to agree with you that it is harmful. And it's not only harmful for the people that live in the city, but it's harmful for the future generations. Because it's giving them a cap. That's not true.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, gentrification is why we have the highway to nowhere, right? You know, that project, and shout out to everybody who's brought attention to the disruption that happened in West Baltimore. Most people don't realize West Baltimore was a vanguard city, right? Not just in our country, but across the world. So you have Lithuanians who have come here because of what West Baltimore was as far as our communities and our businesses. You have other countries, you know, we have a relationship with Israel and Ukraine, all out of the works that happened in West Baltimore. And so a gentrified idea says we want to give predominantly whites who are traveling from Baltimore County through Baltimore City an easy way to get through And you see what happened. They disrupted hundreds of lives, closed businesses, moved seniors, closed schools, and nothing ever happened with that project. What happened to those lives? They were forever disrupted. And so, yes, to your point, it's extremely harmful.
Absolutely. And question 3, should Baltimore's public schools implement mandatory financial literacy courses?
That's a good one. Yes, if they're also going to give people money. So financial literacy, and I don't know how much of my background you've been studying, because you be knowing stuff about me, like, how do you know that? But, I was licensed in insurance in multiple states. I have an extreme background in financial literacy. I've been a business owner for years. And what I've realized is financial literacy is a muscle, like literacy in money is a muscle. So I can teach you something, but if I don't give you the money to invest, the money to lose, the money to be able to shift and be conservative with versus, a little more liberal or flexible, it's just a concept, right? So like I could teach you how to bake a cake, but if I don't give you the ingredients, the pans, the oven, it's just knowledge. It's not applied knowledge. And so we've been talking financial literacy for years. It's not new, right? Remember, you probably don't remember Provident Bank. Provident Bank used to be up in Metro supermarket before it was Shoppers. And you could go to Provident Bank, take a 30-minute financial literacy course, sign up for their checking account, and get a free toolbox. Everybody in the hood had a toolbox. That means everybody in the hood went through the financial literacy program. But here we are today, 25 years later, in the worst financial conditions our city has ever been in. Because you can't give me a concept and not give me the, liquidity for me to apply.
Absolutely.
So yes, definitely put the financial literacy courses in schools, but then also allow young people an opportunity to make their money, their parents an opportunity to make money, create no cost or no charge banking accounts, right? And not just at Harbor Bank, because everybody talks about Harbor Bank as the premier Black bank, but put it somewhere where you can actually invest, grow, and save, and then you can understand portfolios and things like that.
So I'm
You didn't
answering
answer that one.
To answer that question, yes. When I ran for mayor, particularly my platform was education. Growing up in Baltimore City, as we all did, we know the education system hasn't always been the best. And I always think about if it was better, how many of my friends and family would still be alive today.
Right.
And as an adult, I didn't understand how important financial literacy was until I actually started my own business.
That's right.
And I started paying people, individuals, tax, be able to pay taxes and be able to give out, just everything that comes with a business.
Yeah.
But if I'd have learned that in school before I got into the real world, my mind would have acted a lot differently. Not just me, I think the average Baltimorean would have as well.
I agree with you.
So I think we agree on that. We got a wild card question. Who has the best crab cakes in Baltimore?
Oh, that's an easy one. Anybody who's paying me for the sponsorship. So if you're interested in me saying your crab cakes are amazing, go ahead and send me an email at connect2tori@gmail.com. You paying me for it, by all means, you will have the best crab cakes. We don't do anything at no cost.
Everything costs.
Everything costs. I'm an entrepreneur. I got mouths to feed, and my kids do like crab cakes. So
Absolutely.
again, connect 2tori@gmail.com, slide that sponsorship, and then I'll give you a shout out.
Keep pulling up to see that crab.
That's right.
But I could say the best crab cake I've ever had in the city of Baltimore was probably most seafood.
Okay.
And I'm not a big seafood lover, but I love like salmon and crab cakes and
Okay, I love that you said salmon.
Yeah, I love salmon.
And not salmon. You're a Baltimore. I love that. Put that elevator.
Yeah, you can't take the ball.
Put that elevator. Tell me where you're from. Salmon.
But I would say molds.
Okay, before you go past it though, can I just tell you something?
Yes.
It's disheartening, right? I know we were joking, but I want to just talk about something that grinds my gears. So I live in the greater Mondawmin area. As I said, I live in Hamlin Park. Mondawmin's Shoppers is my closest supermarket. A can of salmon used to be $2, $5, sometimes $5.47 in the same community that people aren't making more money. So hold the L or save the L. I can't afford the salmon. That's a problem, right? Things are shifting in a way. Yeah. Just wanted to point that out.
Right.
Shoppers do that.
And we got one more wild card question here. What's your favorite hidden gem in Baltimore?
Oh my goodness, I could talk about that for 20 minutes. 19. So my family is originally not from here, right? I'm like one of the true first generation Baltimoreans, my cousins and I. So when I look at Baltimore, I look at it from a perspective of the history here. And I say this all the time. I love Baltimore. Me and my children, my mom, you may have seen us on New Year's Eve. We all run down the harbor like a tourist. We watch the fireworks. We go in Shot Tower. We go to the museums. We go to cobblestone areas and we read the dates off of the buildings because I love this city. Like I have lived all across the country and I choose to live in Baltimore. And so it's almost like the devout Christian who found Christ as an adult, right? I'm real passionate about the city because I found my freedom here. This is where I'm choosing to live. This is where I'm choosing to serve. This is where I'm choosing to raise my children, although I've lost 7 loved ones to gun violence, right? Although I've lost now 2 elections. So hidden gems, I'm gonna give out a couple. No War, Corey Brown, York Road, I love it. The South Museum on Franklin and Charles. The ice cream Charlie in Hampton. I love Mickle Shades that someone introduced me to 20 years ago in Saratoga. I like the Abbey Bistro. I like Mustang Alley on Bank Street. I love anything Key Highway. But let's bring it home. When you walk through Lafayette Square, even Gilmore Projects, there are pieces of history all throughout the hood, right? I'm gonna give a shout out to Neka Nanzi. She does hood hikes. If you've never been on a hood hike, sign up. She's gonna walk you down Lafayette, Dolphin, Harlem, and she's gonna teach you about Baltimore brick. She's gonna teach you about the marble and why they destroy houses in our community and send the marble to other states and how valuable it is. One of those marble steps goes for about $1,500. So those are just some of the hidden gems. Love your city, y'all. Get out here and walk around and look up. It's a beautiful city.
Beautiful city. What's one of my favorite hidden gems before we go to the next segment? People probably already know this already, but I'm from the east side of Baltimore.
East
side. That's what Green Mountain is at. But this is my favorite spot is the chicken that's called Friendly's. Right there on Green Mountain 33rd, right there by the library.
Okay.
I feel like that's a hidden gem a lot of people don't know about it. If you go there, they got the best chicken, in my opinion.
I love that. I got one more I can throw in because this is a shameless plug. So do you guys know where, so Howard, right off of North Avenue, there's a Popeye. Well, most people know where the child support building is.
Right.
So in that building, one of my programs that I sit as board chair is called the Jeremiah Program. And we help single mothers and children. So that's a hidden gem. I want you guys to check it out. Jeremiah Program of Baltimore.
Jeremiah Program, if you check that out.
Highlighting key issues, and this is not male bashing at all. Many of these women were married, husbands died. Unfortunately, some children's fathers have been arrested. But what we identified is the quickest way to mobilize families is to remove economic barriers. Mm-hmm. So we help mothers get their education. So we pay for school, we pay for children's daycare, we pay for tutoring, we help them find housing. We have all of these wraparound services. And again, it's not to pull apart Black families, but moms often have to choose between themselves and their children, especially if dad died. The dad has been, taken out of the house for whatever reason. And so y'all check out the Jeremiah Program. It's a hidden gem in Baltimore.
Absolutely, thank you. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the current 2024 presidential election, Tori. What are your thoughts on the recent presidential debate that took place last week?
That is a great question.
We all seen it.
Let me preface with, I currently am working very close to the Biden-Harris administration, so I'm going to be intentionally vague.
Okay.
Because my kids like meat on and bread. And she's not gonna mess up her points. But when we were running, I said Republicans do what's best for their party. Democrats do what is needed for them to party. and I need you to hear my heart when I say this. No one should have watched that debate and became fearful for the state of our country. No one. If you're voting for Trump, you should have felt like, woo, you know. If you're voting for Biden, you should have, woo. And that's not what happened. Many people walked away from the debate saying, do we have the best candidate for our party?
Right.
And if we don't take a very serious look at the immediate ramifications of electing the wrong person or having the wrong candidate, we're going to definitely repeat 2012, 2014. Right now, economists are already showing that we're in extreme danger of recession. And think about what happened in 2014. Families were losing everything. Think about what happened in 2020 and 2021 as a result of COVID, right? We can't, as a country, get this wrong.
Right.
So I'm not personally fearful, but a lot of people are.
Absolutely. My take from the debate was I really, even though the mayor election is over for me, I it's like politics is in my brain. Where,
Yes.
Every day I have to look at something. And I wasn't even gonna look at the debate respectfully, because I didn't want to see it. But somebody sent it to me live, actually.
Wow.
And I was watching it. And, my honest opinion is this. Do I feel like, do we need somebody younger? Absolutely, right? I do believe, and that's why I decided to run for public office. Because I feel like I'm the change agent. I feel like we need a change agent who not only move Maryland, but America.
Right.
But my honest opinion is that, when we look at our country, and when we look at where we are, and we look at where we want to go, it's about which one of these presidential candidates, because people talk about Kennedy, but let's be honest, he doesn't really have a chance. You just transparent, let's be honest.
I just
So
love me a good Kennedy.
this is, so this is about, two people who, as a person, you have to put your trust in them and say, this is the best leader for your country.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm gonna say to that.
Oh, I love that. So, okay, my undergraduate degree is in political science. Okay. And as a scientist, something you said just made me think about chain effects. So for any voters out here saying, I only have to choose this guy or this guy, look at the chain effects, okay? We have vice presidents, we have vice president candidates who will run. What happens if something were to happen to either of those presidential candidates? There is a chain of transition of power that could happen. And so I'm going to ask you guys, put your scientist hats on and say, this is bigger than just him and him. Whose cabinet is stronger for what it is that I need? I hear people always ask me on the local level, do I worry about, urban development and housing and justice for Baltimoreans and things like that? And honestly, who's in president doesn't trickle down to your city for normally 8 to 12 years, right? Which is why they want to get reelected, to see social reforms and things like that. So put your political scientist hat on and ask yourself, who has the vice president that you can trust, that could do the work? Who has the cabinet that could do the work, right? Because we're dealing with, no offense, someone who could die or someone who could go to jail.
Right.
So we have to look at it and say, if this person isn't here, who in their succession plan works best for my family?
Absolutely.
That's how scientists approach politics. And that's basically how I'm voting, right? Not just off of the name, the big name, but all those little names that's helping make the decisions as well. I'm gonna vote for my boss.
Absolutely.
I kid. I won't share who I'm voting for, but I do think that you guys need to make a stronger decision. I hear Black people say things all the time, like, oh, I'm gonna vote for Trump because he gave me stimulus money and and all of these things.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard.
And they don't talk about the fact that now car insurance is $500 a month, right? Or salmon is $5 a can, right? So you have to look at it holistically.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. You got to make that, exact decision for you. This is not the show where we want to tell you who to vote for, but we telling you to make an educated decision.
Right.
When it comes to who you feel like can be a better leader for the city. All right. Now, before we close, I want to take a moment to honor my mother, who passed away 6 years ago today. Her strength and love has been a guiding force in my life, and I owe so much to who I am to her. So let's take a moment of silence for her memory. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
I appreciate that. My mom was, one of my biggest supporters. A lot of people know my first story is real quick who you at. I was just like y'all was raised by little guardians. I mean, more my parents, like my blood, right? I was raised by little guardians that took me in and raised me. But the woman, people ask us like, how you got so much manners?
Right.
Why do you have this in the third? And that's for what she instilled in me.
Yeah.
She instilled in me the man that I am, that the integrity and the transparency. That's why I call transparent talks, because everything we do is transparent. So I just want to give it up for my mom one more time. I love you. We had a conversation earlier, and I'll talk to you again later. But just know that this race, I couldn't do anything I'm doing without you.
Yeah, that's huge. And as a mother of a son, I get it. I decided to jump feet back into having a new baby. I have a 1-year-old and a 15, almost 16-year-old.
So beautiful.
Child. But as a mom, our biggest fear is dying without equipping our children. Absolutely. And so a lot of my prayers are not, look, Joshua, you okay? It's like, well, let me just live long enough to give him what he needs. Absolutely. And your mother is definitely giving you what you need. So God bless her spirit. Amen. God bless you and your strength. And if you need a hug, I'm always here.
Always. Mm-hmm. Tori, so we about to wrap it up. Is there anything that you want to add, or you want to plug in anything?
No. I just want to say thank you for Transparent Talks. Thank you, Wendell, for having me. Of course, please follow me at Tori Rose the Connector on all social media platforms. I do have a show coming up. I think we were talking about it a little bit. So starting next Thursday, July 11, 7-11, and we're hoping to get that sponsorship as well. Check me out at 3:30 p.m. on WOLD 10 a.m. on Radio 1. I'm so excited to talk about community connections and economic development and a lot of the things we shared here. So please, if you're interested in being on the show, it's a radio show. So we do have in-studio guests. Email me at Tori, which is TORI, @gmail.com. I'm looking forward to plugging you in. I got some travel coming up, so I'll have a couple of guests hosts. But once I get myself back together, I'm gonna send you some dates. I would love to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much. And listen, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Everybody is just in a silo, right? Go out and talk to somebody, ask them how you can be a better neighbor.
All right, so real quick, one last question. The people, somebody asked me to ask you this. They want to know if you running for.
Am I running what?
For council.
Running my mouth.
Running public office. The people want to know if you're running public office.
So I'll say this really quickly. I never thought I would run the second time. My community begged me for months to run. If and when I choose to run again, it will be God aligned, and it'll only be because He called me to do it.
Amen.
So. Right now, I'm supporting a couple of other candidates that are going to be running in the upcoming delegates race. So I'm excited about that.
Awesome. To our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of Transparent Talks with Wendell Freeman. Join us next week as we continue to explore the issues daily. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Together, we can build a brighter future for Baltimore for the next generation. Until next time, stay strong and stay